Hi, I'm Jenn Wilson, and this is an introduction to the Consent Compass, which is a framework I've developed over several years of practicing consent as a way to help you to navigate your own consent and the consent of others more effectively. So, why do we need a compass? Why are we navigating consent? Sometimes we think of consent as this quite simple, straightforward thing where somebody wants permission or agreement from somebody else to proceed. A box might get ticked for cookies on a website or terms and conditions, and it's agreed, and on we go. But a lot of times, consent can be more complex than that. I see consent as the practice through which we as human beings relate to one another, and how we do so without causing one another harm, but actually seeking connection, seeking common ground, seeking consensus, looking for a way forward together where everybody is comfortable enough, everybody is willing to proceed together. Outside of consent, there's a lot of conflict, coercion, and harm. So consent is really important, and it's a part of our everyday life. It's not just something that we save for the bedroom or for those internet tick boxes. Consent is how we make our decisions, how we make our choices, how we decide what we are okay with and what we're not okay with as we move through life. Consent operates across a range of different levels. So it starts with your own internal dialogue, your own internal decision-making processes. Not everybody has an inner voice, but we all have a way of making decisions for ourselves about what we are willing to do, what we are not willing to do, what people like us can agree to and can't agree to, what we have to do, what we should do, what we must do. All of these things go on in our heads, and sometimes that internal conversation, if it is a conversation, can be quite coercive, where we're telling ourselves that we are not good enough, or that we're not able to say yes or no to the things that we want and don't want to say yes and no to. So there's this inner dialogue, the self-consent, the permission you give yourself. Then there's the interpersonal level of consent, the ways that individuals relate to one another. And that could be in an intimate situation, or it could be in any kind of family or friendship situation, a parent and child, friends relating together, individual work colleagues relating together, people who meet on the street. We're constantly navigating each other's boundaries, edges, permissions, and agreements. And we do that with every interaction that we make with each other. Then there's group dynamics, peer pressure. So most of us are used to navigating consent across different groups. So, for example, how we behave in a group of fellow students or work colleagues might be very different from how we behave in a family gathering or in a place of worship or in a nightclub. Each of these different social settings has its own rules. Sometimes those rules are actually explicit and written and agreed, and sometimes they are just assumptions and expectations about how people should behave in that particular environment, in that particular setting. And it can be quite hard sometimes to work out what those assumptions and rules are. So there's this group consensus going on. And then there's the higher level of system, culture, society. And our decisions are made in the context of what we've learned about our society, about who we are and what our place in the world is as we've grown up in that society or culture. For most of us, we will have learned that we have a particular place in that culture that is informed by hierarchical ways of thinking. Some people have more power or privilege than other people along the lines of gender, disability, sexuality, race and ethnicity, age, a bunch of different factors that create expectations and assumptions about who we are, what our rights and our place in the world is, how much freedom we've got to make decisions about our own life and our own destiny, and how much that's influenced by those systems and by people who might have more power and privilege than we do. So we're navigating consent across these complex different areas. And in the middle of that, our consent is our own. The consent compass is about you and how you navigate that yourself. The compass always points towards connection, towards common ground, towards consensus, towards that place where everybody's comfortable enough and willing enough to move forward together. That is always the direction of travel with the consent compass. So if you decide to go a different way and you don't care about the impact that your behaviour and your decisions have on anyone other than you, and you don't care if they cause any harm, then you're not caring about consent. Consent, it's your decisions in relation to who you're relating to in the world and the impact that you might make. At the heart of the compass, you'll see your agency, your ability, your capacity to make decisions, your freedom, your free will, you and your agency, your personal choices. All of us have some degree of agency. For some of us, it might be very limited in certain circumstances. By age, for example, young children have very little agency. In certain circumstances, you may have reduced agency where someone has power over you, perhaps in your workplace, perhaps in a particular social dynamic or in a particular system that you live in. Some of us live under coercive systems that leave some individuals with very little agency. And those people only have a choice between a rock and a hard place, perhaps, but there's still a choice, albeit a very, very difficult and limited one. Going with that is our accountability. So for those of you that have very limited agency, you are also very limited in terms of your ability to account for the decisions that you make. You can't be held responsible for what someone does with their power over you and does to you, and that is beyond your control. Also, some people who have a lot of agency don't necessarily take hold of their ability to account for their decision making, and they are outside of consent if that is the case. If you have a lot of agency in any given situation, perhaps you're the parent and you've got a child to look after, perhaps you're the boss in a workplace and you've got a team that you're responsible for, you're accountable for what goes on in that team, in that family, because you're the one that has greater agency, greater capacity to make decisions and choices. It's not a simple equation. Obviously, that changes and shifts and ebbs and flows across different circumstances. So being mindful of how much agency and accountability that you have as you navigate consent. Then we have the 4 points on the compass. Now, it's important to remember that we're constantly moving towards connection, towards consent, towards consensus. So we're not moving towards one point on the compass. What we're doing is using all 4 points to help us know where we are and to help us check that we're moving towards consent and connection. And the 4 points on the compass are responsive, informed, specific, and explicit. You can remember the parts of the compass, perhaps with the acronym ARISE. That will help you remember the words. But what's important is their meaning. So, responsive consent. This is that bit where it's not just, I've got your consent and on we go. But the consent is ongoing. It's an ongoing practice from moment to moment. Have we agreed? Are we still in agreement? Are we still in consensus? Can we continue to move forward? And things change all the time. Things change around us, things change inside us. Perhaps we've got hungry or tired, or we don't feel well anymore, or perhaps we've just changed our mind. Or perhaps the person we're navigating consent with is having those shifts and changes. So the consent that we're in shifts and changes from moment to moment, and it's constantly responsive, it's constantly reversible. You can change your mind and go, yes, I agreed to that, and I don't agree anymore, and that's okay. I is informed consent. Sounds pretty straightforward. We all need to know what we're consenting to, of course. The difficulty is you don't know what you don't know till you suddenly realize you don't know it. So informed consent requires curiosity, asking questions and inviting those questions, enabling and encouraging questions to come back so that you know that the person or people that you're navigating consent with are understanding what it is that you're proposing to do together, and everyone's got the information that they need to proceed. The next point on the compass is specific. And specific consent is about the context, the limits, the edges, the boundaries of consent. So it's really helpful if you know what your non-negotiables are for you in your life and your world, the things that you're really not willing ever to compromise on. And you might not know those, you might find those out as you go along, but when you know them, remember them and hold on to them. You don't have to move on those. The limits and context and differences of the situation, what you agreed to do with your friends in the pub might not be the same thing that you're happy to do with your friends in the park or at the workplace or in some other context. So it's all of those specifics of I agreed to that with that person on that day, in that moment, in that context, but that doesn't mean that I am obliged now to keep doing that thing with anyone. So it's being really specific. The last point on the compass, but not the least, all four, as I say, are very important and they all interplay with each other. The last one is explicit consent, and that's about ensuring that the consent that you are in is communicated. And remembering that different people have different ways of communicating. They might have a different language or different language skills. They might have a different background or understanding or lived experience of what it is that you're trying to navigate together. And they might not understand the way you're communicating. Lots of people have different abilities to understand words, body language, tone, facial expressions. There's lots and lots of ways that we can communicate. An absence of communication, a don't know and an uncertainty is almost certainly not a yes. It might be a need for more information. It might be a need for a shift of specific context. There might be something else going on. But communication is really important, and being really sure that you're willing and wanting to proceed, and that the people that you're navigating consent with are also willing and wanting to proceed. And are they still, and are they still, and are they still happy and wanting to proceed? So that's the consent compass. You might think, oh, hang on a minute, this is far too cumbersome. I don't want to be thinking about a consent compass every time I want to hug my partner. Of course, you don't need to do that. You and your partner will hopefully have built up over a long period of time a consensus, an agreement, a good set of tools and connection and trust between you. That means that you don't have to ask every time you want to hug. You can read each other's body language. You can know what's expected, and it's probably okay. And if it's not okay, they're more than capable of telling you that it's not okay, and it's not going to cause a complete breakdown in your relationship. So you don't need the consent compass when you're with very close, very familiar, very practiced, very trusted people doing very familiar things. But if you're trying something new, if you're in an unfamiliar situation, or if somebody new is in the mix, then the compass becomes more useful, because you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you're stepping into unfamiliar territory, and now it becomes useful to start noticing how your agency and accountability are working. Are you moving towards connection and consent? Are you being responsive, informed, specific, and explicit with the ways that you're exploring and moving forward together? So that's what the consent compass is for. A final footnote: you will make mistakes. Consent is a practice. We all make mistakes, and that's how we learn. My hope is that with the consent compass, if people are genuinely and authentically traveling towards that connection and working with the compass, those mistakes will be small ones and not ones that cause trauma or harm to other people or to yourself. So do lean into that accountability if you make a mistake. If you find yourself crashing into somebody's boundary, stepping into territory that's uncomfortable for yourself or someone else, then use your agency, use your accountability, use all the points on the compass, and try to navigate your way back to a place where everybody's comfortable. Say that you're sorry if you've got it wrong, and ask for help to learn so you don't make the same mistakes over and over again. That's the consent compass. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you will like, share this film, listen to the podcasts, visit the website where there's more tools and resources on the consent compass and on the International Day of Consent. The website is irregular.org.uk/I do consent. And there's also the International Day of Consent website at idoconsent.org. Thanks ever so much for listening. Bye.